Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your nighttime, right time DJ Music, and welcome to another episode of the Chop Shop. This week is going to be about the money, the Skrilla, the dollar bill. Where it's all going to, what's happening to it, some sneaky things going on. I'm going to bring in somebody to help me chop it up on the Chop Shop. As always, on the right-hand side of me, my good friend and my co-host, Shaw. Willie, come on in, Shaw, and say hello to the good folks, if you don't mind, please.
And I don't mind. And hello. Good to be here again.
Yeah, good. It's always good to have you sitting on the panel and, chopping it up with you. It's a whole lot of things been going on since the last time we got together and chopped it up. But, that's for another day. All kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I don't have to ask you, before we get into our main topic. I don't got to ask you, but that Puffy video was horrible, wasn't it?
It was gut-wrenching.
Gut-wrenching. My goodness. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen it, it's all over the internet right now. It's one of those videos that you don't want to watch it, but it confirms a lot of what a lot of folks been saying about Sean P. Diddy Combs. But anyway, let's get away from that. Since he's talking about money, he's a music mogul with plenty of money. He don't worry about some of the things that we worry about, Shaw. We don't have millions and millions of dollars. People watching us and different things like that. What happens to our money? Where the U.S. dollar stands. Just that average. I won't say working Joe, but we do what we do to keep our head above water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We like to know where our money's going and what's happening to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Nothing wrong with that. What are we paying for?
Right. But there's this why don't you tell me about this channel Redacted?
Okay. Well, it's formed from two news anchors. The wife is definitely a writer, and the husband used to be on a local news station. And both of them got tired of being fed information to give the audience, even
Mm-hmm.
when it wasn't true. They like, mm-mm. So they decided to start their own, and they started on YouTube. YouTube didn't like too much of the truth either. So they end up getting a website, they have a newsletter, and they also on Rumble.
Right. And it's a lot of good. Since you introduced me to the channel, they come up with a lot of things that make you really do think, right?
They do, because they even have investigators.
Yeah, they sure do. So this not just some fly by night YouTube channel, folks. Yeah, I will say that. I think a lot of the clips and the stories that I've seen over there, rare, easily verifiable. Wouldn't you say so, Sharp?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think they really delve into conspiracy theory too much. But,
No, it's separate. It's separate.
Yeah, they do dive into it, but but for the most part, it's real time things that they're talking about. Like tonight, the thing we're going to talk about is the U.S. dollar, the money.
Mm.
Okay, so let's without further ado, we'll stop it when we need to, and let's see what the folks at Redacted is talking about us and our money. Now let me take this clip off here.
All right.
Okay. Lower this here. It's the flash. Okay.
Where's my money?
All right. Where's my money? And there's the channel right there. It's called Redacted, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and start and see what we're going to talk about here. All right. Here we go.
End of the US dollar is happening much faster than anyone thought possible. Now more than ever, there are a lot of questions about the stability and the future of the US dollar. Will the US dollar crash? How many countries are abandoning the US dollar in favor of the BRICS currency? You have Russia, China, you have South Africa, you have all of these countries saying enough with the US dollar. So we're going to unpack this today on today's show. Let's get into some of the nitty-gritty details here about the dollar, which has held its power in global trade for decades, of course, since World War II. It's been the principal reserve currency of the world. So what exactly does that mean? Well, a reserve currency is held and used by institutions and central banks around the world for international transactions. Major commodities like gold, lumber, oil, all priced in dollars. We'll settle our oil transactions in petrodollars, right? We're going to use US dollars to settle those transactions. Global trade runs on the US dollar. It has long been an important cornerstone in the global economy.
Now, I don't know how many folks know this, but you hear them say that global trade is based on the US dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the US dollar itself has no, how do we say, no backing. It has
Yes,
no,
it's not backed by nothing.
it's not backed by anything. There's no natural resources. Like there's no huge, excuse me, no huge gold reserve somewhere, gold deposit or anything like that. This is one of the few countries that you can walk into a bank broke, is all outdoors with the right people. You can walk, excuse me, walk out of there a millionaire.
Mm.
Just based on who you know. So I don't know how the U.S. dollar has had this staying power for so long, and maybe that's a lot that has to do with, why we're at war so much.
Mm-hmm.
You beat the country down so much, and you like in Saudi Arabia, we went over there after the war was over. While doing the war over there in the Middle East, how much of the U.S. dollars went over there that's still over there?
They printing and sending it on.
Right, the war in Ukraine, they couldn't find money to help the poor here in the United States of America, but they got a bill on the table right now to send Ukraine $65 billion.
Ooh-wee.
Based on what? There's no gold reserves here.
Promise? I don't know.
Promissory note. That's basically what it is. I'm gonna promise to pay you back.
One day.
Right. There's a running clock, folks. I think you can go online and type in the debt ceiling, and there's a running clock. As that clock is running, that's how much the United States bills are going up. Every turn of that clock, we owe somebody some more money. Let's continue.
Due to its ease of conversion and its value. And of course, the United States would back the U.S. dollar with the power of the U.S. military. That was the agreement made during the Bretton Woods Conference. Right?
See? Gotta stay at war. You gotta stay at war. War is what folks ask. Why the United States at war for so long? Why did it take so long to pull out of Afghanistan and Vietnam and all? Because we're a war machine. War is what makes money for the United States of America. Say what you want to.
Right? We will police the waterways with our U.S. Navy to secure the trade routes, but you will use U.S. dollars. But over the past several decades, the inherent value of the dollar has been in massive decline. In 1971, the U.S. dollar's departure from the gold standard led to a major devaluation of our currency. And this was just the first time the dollar has declined.
These periods of falling and regaining value are known as super cycles. Each dip is essentially correcting an overvalued dollar. Many economists today think that America's currency is due for another correction, just like previous super cycles.
And more countries are starting to seek autonomy and diversification away from the US dollar. Look at all throughout Africa right now. Not to mention, in recent history, China has become an economic...
As you see on the screen right there, this is one of those conspiracy theory things that might have some truth to it. But they say this man on the screen here, Gaddafi, that's why he was killed. That's why he became public enemy number one of the United States of America, because he tried to get all the African countries to own their own banking system. And guess what? Africa's money is based on gold, gold and diamonds, natural resources.
Right.
If Gaddafi could have gotten all 54, 60 nations and all these different African countries to change to the gold standard of the dinar, the United States itself would have been bankrupt. The United States could not have that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard it was conspiracy, but it has too much truth to it to me. Too much
Right.
truth. The man just I forgot how he, mysteriously or whatever how he died, but it wasn't whatever it was. It didn't add up. I remember that
Right. No,
much.
it didn't add up. That country was a sovereign country. The United States went in and destabilized it, and the government got overthrown, and he was charged with war crimes, and he summarily was put to death. Whether it be through the hands of the government or so as they say, a coup. They were flying into the United States, showed up. But let's continue.
Powerhouse. Sanctions enforced after the invasion of Ukraine have encouraged more and more countries to turn towards other currencies. Seeing what the United States has done to sanction Russia, Putin announced an intent to create an international currency standard. And even France has been leaning less and less on the US dollar. These are just a few examples, many, many more to speak of, all throughout Latin America and Africa and the rest of the Middle East. So when asked about these global issues and their impact on the dollar as a world currency, here's what Janet Yellen, U.S. Treasury Secretary, had to say about it. She said, quote, "We should expect over time a gradually increased share of other assets in reserve holdings of countries." And the Federal Reserve itself lists some challenges the dollar is facing. Let's
And to put that in layman's terms, what she just said is sooner or later, the U.S. dollar is not going to have the buying power that it once had. That should be expected. She said it should be expected. And actually, if we look at it, it is, because China's navy is just as big as ours. Russia is the landmass is just as big as the United States. Africa landmass is just as big as the United States. Sooner or later, these countries are going to want sovereignty and not rely on the U.S. dollar, and they're showing it. 2024 is actually it's in progress.
Yeah.
read right from the source, right from the Fed website. Sanctions imposed by the United States and its allies on Russia following the invasion of Ukraine may make the dollar less attractive as a reserve currency. Yes, that's right. The euro could become more attractive as a reserve currency in the future. And they also point out another source of challenges to the US dollar's dominance could be the continued rapid growth of China, which is by far the world's largest exporter, though it lags behind the
I don't know how many of you folks know, but this is a joke, and I know it's going to be a bad joke, but I gotta say, they say that if the war was to end, there'd be two species left on this world: cockroaches and Chinese people.
Haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, got to the point to where it was almost illegal at one time to have more than one child in China.
Yeah, I remember that.
Steady growing. 1.412 billion, and you see the graph is steadily growing.
Mm-hmm.
Where all them people gonna go sooner or later?
At the Ramada Inn in California.
Right. Back to them damn migrants, isn't it?
That what the footage showed me.
That's what the footage showed me. Listen, folks, if you don't believe us, go back to some of our footage. All this has a way of tying itself in. All them folks cannot live in China. They got to go somewhere. But anyway, let's continue.
United States. By value of imports, Chinese GDP already exceeds US GDP on purchasing power parity basis and may exceed US GDP in nominal terms in the 2030s. In other words, the United States dollar is on the decline. Despite these glaring issues, American politicians like to affirm that the dollar's position as a global currency is strong. But clearly, there's been a slow burn happening behind the scenes for decades. Bit by bit, other countries are trying to establish independence and chip away at the dollar's role as the most prevalent reserve currency. Now, some may argue that the biggest threat to the future of the US dollar is the US government itself. I mean, national debt continues to climb at astronomical rates. I'm one of those people that believes that's the case, right? When you have unbelievable national.
And I'm one of those people that believe it too. When you have a government that's unchecked, that's spending and spending and expending, like the other night, the Republicans decided that they wanted to go to the courthouse to back Donald Trump. So they cut off the business of the regular business of what these congressmen should do, like cost the taxpayers more money to get into an all-out hissy fit fight. We pay for that. To impeach Merrick Garland about something that he could have not possibly have done. So I forgot what Jamie Raskin said, what it cost the American people for this, I dare I use the word shit show that was going on the other night. But that cost us money. So that you could, that wheel that I was talking about, that budget wheel, that deficit wheel, that added to it. Look at the graph on the screen there, folks. Says it all. National debt. And guess what the majority of it spent on? Military.
War. What is it good for?
Right. Well, he said it earlier. You know, we're going to police the waterways. We're going to rescue you from the bullies like the Russians if they're coming. But if y'all got to use the dollar.
Right.
Debt on top of 9 wars that you're carrying out throughout the world, and you're funneling billions more to Ukraine and Israel. That is not sustainable. We are our own worst enemies, right? So you mix high debt, high inflation, it could very quickly result in a crisis for the US dollar. Now, regardless of what ultimately happens with the dollar, now is the time to think about how to protect yourself. I mean, we're in an environment right now with high inflation, tons of economic volatility. Americans are losing their jobs left and right, while debt on both a personal and national level is out of control. But luckily, I have tons of free resources right here for you on this channel on how to protect yourself, how to build multiple streams of income, how to preserve your wealth, and I have a freedom cheat sheet.
So get on over there, folks, and you check out the Redacted channel. But that's not all. We're going to talk about money. Remember that last little part right there? He says on how to protect your money and know where your money's going. Well, let's continue on here. I got something else.
Well, our government's using new.
And with this part right here, I wanted you to actually see the folks. So, I actually left the folks at Redacted a message saying that I was going to review this. So, let's pray for the worst and let's pray for, how the saying go. But anyway, I wanted you folks to see some of the graphics, so I didn't want to block any of it out. I wanted to give them credit for what they do. That's the only reason I didn't block it out like I did the other first part of the stream, because mostly it was just him on the screen talking.
Special powers to comb through your bank accounts, look at where you've been spending your money. Well, every transaction that you make will now be monitored by the government. That appears to be the case. That's exactly what the British government is trying to do.
Did you hear that? Every transaction that you make could be possibly already monitored by the government. Why is that important? Char, you think that important?
Oh, it's important. Just think about all these terms and conditions that we've been getting all of a sudden, and these tests on our phones. Yeah, it's happening.
All right, a simple trip to the local gas station could mean somebody could be watching you, know exactly what you spent and why you spent it on.
Yeah,
it probably wouldn't affect me and you. Why? Because neither one of us are on any government assistance, right? Wouldn't affect me or you, right? I'm sure of that.
Yeah, but if you're using the banking system and you transfer something over here and swipe over there,
right. If you go to the grocery store, it's going to affect you, right?
Yeah.
Gas station. If you shop online,
Yeah.
no way
They,
around it, right?
yeah, they watching.
Mm. No, I didn't say some transactions.
Oh.
All, every transaction.
Itself sweeping powers to secretly monitor your bank accounts. Silky Carlo is the director of Big Brother.
Big issue. New bank spying powers could risk repeating horizons. Big issue. New bank spying powers. That's all I needed to see. There was a time, remember, our grandparents used to say, I don't trust the banks.
Yeah. They like the mattress and the cookie jar.
In the mattress, the cookie jar, the mason can, the Maxwell House coffee can.
Okay. Old school.
Right. But new bank spying powers. That's all banks, any bank. If they want to know what you spending your hard-earned dollars now, it's right here to let them do it. Let's continue.
Watch, and she has been really sounding the alarm on this government overreach, and she joins us now from London. Silky, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So can you educate us on exactly what the UK is trying to do here with bank accounts, and do you think that this will pass?
Yes, the government has essentially snuck in these sweeping powers into a really unrelated bill on data, whereby they will be able to force banks to continuously and repeatedly search bank accounts for what they call indicators of potential fraud and error. So there's not even a crime threshold.
I wonder what she means by it, because folks, I know y'all think this is in England, but it's already happening here. Think about this: if you receive one of those SNAP cards, the government already tells you what you can buy with that card. And if you tried to buy something that's not listed on that list of things that you can buy with that card, what's going to happen to that item?
It'll reject and decline the purchase.
Right. You can't buy that purchase. So our government already knows if you're on a welfare system, if you're swiping that card, they already know what you're buying. They already know what you're spending your money on.
No suspicion threshold. Is partly administrative because they're looking for errors in the administration of welfare and benefits, including the state's own errors. Really, nothing like this has ever come before. And in fact, it won't even stop at banks, because this extraordinary financial snoopers charter is aimed at third-party organizations. So initially it's going to be banks and building societies, but the people that I've spoken to in the government in formal meetings have said that they're interested in extending this to places like online marketplaces, eBay, and so on. So that essentially any online account that you have could be within the crosshairs of financial state-backed surveillance.
And of course, we all have online bank accounts.
We all have online bank accounts, and that goes to you content creators too. Your what they call that? Your super chats ain't safe. Come on.
Super chat, Cash App, PayPal.
Cash App. None of that. None of that safe
Watch
anymore.
the link.
Right. Don't drop that link. Don't go send it to me. No, don't put that in here. But I mean, just think about all those things that we kind of take for granted, that we think that when it says it's a secure online purchase, it really isn't.
Right.
Am I wrong? Sure.
No, you're not wrong.
And this is, of course, this lady is from the UK, but you know, it's similarities are the same. If the UK is doing it, what would make us think the United States is not doing this? Already hadn't implemented this.
Right. We already have less banks now.
Right. And you don't see, you used to hear people say, for those who in the workforce, you used to hear people say, well, I got to take my lunch break and go to the bank. Not no more.
Okay.
Let's continue.
There are very few of us operating like the Flintstones these days. So we all have to rely digitally now on banks. We're closing down branches so that everything is moving towards no tellers and everything is moving digitally. So almost everything then would be caught up in this net. Am I wrong?
It could be, and that's really one of the extraordinary things about these enormous powers is that they so lack limitation. And in an increasingly digital world, we have to think about what that means. I mean, already it's not just banks, as you say. We've also got the likes of PayPal, other digital payment platforms that people use. We're also seeing a march towards CBDCs, and governments around the world are trying to give the public assurance by saying, it's just conspiracy theorists who think CBDC is going to be used to spy on people and control what you spend. We would never do on that. Well, we would never do. Well, you look at what's happening now with traditional banking, and even with traditional banking, these powers are going to be used to put people under constant monitoring. And the thing about these,
Right. How do they think that it wouldn't?
Think about they want to, or they already started with some places with UBI, the universal income.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're giving it to you, of course they know how to track it. Now I haven't received it yet. I would like to be part of that pilot plan in Illinois, but we'll see what happens.
Right.
And they give you a certain amount, and of course they're going to track it. And more people than not are going to accept that money. So it's just a little bit at a time, a little bit here, a little bit there, till they got everybody. That's just the bottom line. Because like I said earlier, there's only so many banks. These banks are, the smaller banks are being bought out by some larger banks.
Yeah,
So
you're absolutely right.
when it's left, you're going to have the big three. Just like with the phone companies. Phone companies merging and going out of business, you got the big three. And everything going to be like a big three, which now you can compile and it's easier to get the information. And it's just going to continue on down the line and everything.
I can't say I disagree with you on that, because it's almost like that now. What's one of the big three? Chase Manhattan, Wells Fargo,
Bank of America?
Bank of America. I know Bank of America is big on the West Coast. Yeah, I'm sure. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, those would be those are good big three that would be in there that you would think about. That I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's continue though, folks.
powers is, of course, it affects the people that can be kind of othered, if you like. So people think it doesn't affect me, it's just people who are in receipt of welfare and benefits. Well, in the UK, that's all of us at some point, because that includes pension. And all of us will become pensioners at some point. If you fall ill, then you'll need to have some kind of sickness payment. So actually it affects a huge amount of the population, and it will expand. Of course, once you have the government inside people's bank accounts, having this kind of backdoor ability to look at what people are spending, I think it's a matter of time before that extends to tax collection and other kind of automated policy enforcement. And
again, she's absolutely right, because if the government knows where you get your money from, how you must spend your money, you can't say you can't pay no tax. There's no way to hide money anymore because it's all digital.
And you give me a pension, you can see every purchase I make. I have no problem.
You don't mind that pension, though? Huh?
Hey, watch it all. You can see everything. I don't care. Give me that pension.
I'm going to the grocery store today. I don't care if you see.
That's right. I bought them chocolate chip cookies. I know I said I wasn't going to eat none this month, but hey,
Give me
good
that
month.
pension.
All right, watch all you want.
So you ain't got nothing to hide, Shark?
I have nothing to hide. In fact, I'll give you the list of what I'm going to buy.
Let's continue. She said, I'll give you the list.
that also mirrors, I have to say, what we see in some of the conversation about CBDCs around the world, that governments are already looking at how you can automate welfare and welfare payments and tax collection.
the whole idea, of course, they're spinning this is it's more convenient for you, right? CBDCs, all of this. It's about convenience to improve your life, but of course, really, it's about control and it's about surveillance.
Well, I meant to stop there, but I think the government, as far as welfare benefits, I already think that once they stopped it with the paper food stamps, I think the government is they might have been well ahead of the curve when it comes to what she just said.
Yeah, I would agree with you because if I'm not mistaken, I think I seen an article or something about the percentage of the type of foods that is bought in different communities, and then they broke that down into the severity of illnesses in such places.
Right, right. Based on on a person's diet, and it probably had something to do with the. I don't know the exact year, but I think you're talking about the CDC study where they were doing looking at the places in food desert and why it was contributing, especially in black areas, to like high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That we
So
eat more things that are packaged,
right,
more
right,
sodium and thing like
right,
that, and then it goes to healthcare and how much that costs. So yeah, so everything is already being monitored, honestly.
right. And I think that's why the government come in and said, okay, well, this is this break according to the study, the one that I don't really know when the study was, so I'm not gonna guess the date. But according to this is what these folks buy in Chicago. This
Hmm.
is what these folks buy in Chicago. So I think they went down those lists and said, okay, because this type food causes this, let's go ahead and restrict them from buying this. We know that you can't buy cigarettes, of course, with EB Eat Better Things card is what I called it. You can't buy
Eat
you
better
can't
card.
yeah. You can't, but the government, the government already restricts to what you can do with that card. Am I right?
Yes.
And it's been that way for quite some time. When they couldn't restrict what you use your paper dollars on, the paper stamps, but now they can do it with the card that you slide through the little thing. You can't buy that.
Right.
The UK, of course, already has a massive surveillance program. I don't think you could walk down any corner in London and not be videoed and photographed in some capacity. So this is just an extension of that. And you pointed out something really interesting I wanted to go back to, which is the idea of where this threshold is, this fraud threshold, or whatever it is they're going to be monitoring. So it sounds kind of nebulous, like there's really no specificity to exactly what would be flagged. And they would say, this guy's a terrorist. We need to watch this guy.
You're absolutely right that Britain is already a surveillance society, quite unlike, even far beyond other countries around the world. And now we've got this leap into financial surveillance. And I should add as well, as you'll know, in Europe, there are strict cash spending controls now as well.
Yes.
Like you're not supposed to do cash transactions in many European countries over 500 euros, which is about, $750.
Right. Again, I took a trip to, I had to get on the airplane, right? Took a trip.
Hmm.
And I promised myself that after 9/11, I would never get on an airplane again. But it was important, so I said, okay, let me go get on the airplane. I didn't realize that everything in the airport is cash free.
Wow.
You're paying for your luggage, your ticket. They don't want cash in the airport anymore. It's no good.
Mm. Okay.
For those of you who ain't traveled, listen here. Let me tell you, don't walk in the airport with a pocket full of money, because they ain't gonna do you no good. You better have a piece of plastic when you come into the airport.
Wow.
Isn't that the government forcing you to spend their money their way? Isn't that the airline companies forcing you to spend money their way?
Well, look like that's what's happening.
Sure, you ain't getting on the plane. You can't check your luggage without sliding that card.
Or something, they're really quite tight controls. But yes, you're right. I mean, of course, you have to tackle fraud in society, and nobody wants public money to be spent fraudulently. The government already has powers to obtain the bank statements of suspects. And in fact, when you're doing a welfare application, you have to give a huge amount of information, IDs, bank statements.
They want to know your mama's name, your sister's name, where you lived at the last 10 years, how many folks in your house. If you can't call that a checks and balances system, nothing is.
Dang.
And for you folks that's applied for government assistance, you know exactly what she's talking about. You got to go there with an armload of stuff.
Dang.
Pay slips, huge amount of information, and that can be then requested again on demand. This is different. This is specifically without suspicion. The government says we're introducing these powers to look at people where there is no suspicion. That should be where the alarm bell is ringing for everybody, because what underpins a free society is the presumption of innocence. And when you lose that, we become a world of suspects, where all of our data has to be looked at all the time, just in case we do something wrong. That is not a free world, but that's the world that's being built around us.
It's terrifying, right? There's no suspicion at all, but we're just going to monitor you in case it's whether it's thought crime. This is what bothers me, right? It's, you've got a subscription, you've got an online subscription to, our show, like our show gets flagged as dangerous, and so.
And that's what you were speaking of earlier. Something as simple as, okay, say Redacted is on a government watch list because you bought a subscription, or because you click onto their channel, they're now watching you.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
It is. I wish there's something when their channel was struck. I wish I would have caught it. I didn't see it that day. Because Clayton here, because he's worked for, I think it was NBC, he knows green screen. So he's just got that eye. And there was someone reporting saying that they were in some city or state. And he just pointed it out on his show. He's like, wait a minute. No, that's a green screen. He's not there.
Right.
Next thing you know, I don't know, was it like a minute later? The show was down. His channel was down. They put a strike on his channel, and with strikes, you can't say anything. You can't say anything on your post or anything.
Right.
And that's when he started building different things. He's like, let's get us a website. We're gonna go over to Rumble. You can say what you want to say. Let's get a newsletter. Exactly. Let's get all we need to do in place.
Right.
Telling the truth, ain't something.
Exactly. It's a lot of the things that you just talked about. He mentions on this channel again, folks. If you would, I don't recommend too many channels that you subscribe to, but I do recommend this channel highly. It's informative and it's educational.
Very, yes.
So I would suggest that you do check this channel out.
Oh, you're a subscriber to Redacted, or you're a subscriber to a particular newspaper or a Substack of a journalist, and we don't like that. That's thought crime. We have a problem with that, so we want to look more deeply into this individual, right? This is where this goes, because I'm not one of those people that can sit back and say we should just trust the government. They've never done anything wrong. They have a long track record of doing these things.
Absolutely. To say trust the government, they only want these powers for purely benevolent reasons, is its own conspiracy theory, because it's not borne out by any fact, or the path of history shows us that power has to be limited and has to be scrutinized. And that's what we're saying here. We cannot hand over mass, suspicionless bank, building society, endless financial surveillance powers to a government and still call ourselves a free country. You're absolutely right that there is a risk for these powers to be politicized. We saw during the pandemic the way that financial surveillance powers were used, whether it was PayPal or the Canadian banks deciding to freeze and close the accounts of people that were protesting the government, many of whom I think were vindicated in the actions that they took. And the argument becomes this: once the government has the back door and has the powers, they say, well, it would be wrong if we didn't also use it for this other purpose that benefits society. And it almost becomes then, they will frame it as an obligation that they have to do more surveillance and more enforcement. So, the argument really should begin and end when the government wants to get into your bank account without suspecting you of having done anything wrong. It's as simple as that.
One thing I'm confused about, though, Silky, is the idea that, well, these credit card companies and these other banks, these institutions, they have massive amounts of already fraud detection in place. So what you're telling me now, the UK government is saying, we think that is substandard. These individual businesses, Wells Fargo, Chase, I don't know the British banks. The ones we have are bad enough, but that they don't have mechanisms in place to monitor fraud. If there's a transaction that gets flagged, someone's using a weird VPN and they're buying a subscription to something they shouldn't be. We know credit cards get shut down all the time. You need to call your bank to verify a transaction, but the government can do a better job of this?
Absolutely right, folks. I don't know how many times if you drive or not, or whatever. Sure, I'm not sure whether you drive or not. But if you go to the gas station and there's some particular gas pumps that you go to use your card, and if you notice, there's a hole on your on maybe $100, or maybe your entire bank account is frozen until that transaction. It might take 24 hours, 48 hours, but you might not know that. You might stop at the gas station, fill your car up, go to the next place and say, okay, I need to pull over and get something to eat. You want to use your card, but you can't because you bought gas, your whole financial thing is frozen. Or you might use, right. Or you might go onto a website, and because the government deems it might be suspicious, they freeze your bank freezes your account because it looks like it's a fraudulent account. It's not fraudulent. It's Amazon Prime.
Wow.
So the government picks and chooses basically whether what you're buying or what subscription you're buying. I'm gonna freeze your account based on this because it looks fraudulent to me. That's what this lady's saying.
That's crazy.
That's absolutely right. Well, the government is going to be deputizing the banks to do this extra surveillance for them. But you're right that already happens on a massive scale. And part of that's because of the landslide for civil liberties that we've had post 9/11. There are all kinds of anti-money laundering and counter-terror financing laws that already mean there's an enormous amount of surveillance and signals monitoring in banks. And if we look at how that's worked out, I can say for the UK, what we have, the banks can generate what are called suspicious activity reports. And that's supposed to signal anything that looks unusual in the way that you described that goes on with someone's bank accounts. The problem is the vast majority of them are just noise and they're not picking up on anything whatsoever. And this is the nature of mass surveillance, that even if you have a system that is 99% accurate, which no algorithmic surveillance system is, when you're searching through tens of millions of people, then you're going to have thousands of false positives of people that you wrongly accuse.
Thousands of people being wrongly accused of some kind of fraudulent activity. Sure?
Right. That would be true. She's right.
Thousands of people being accused of fraudulent activity. Imagine you're waiting for your government assistance. You're 65, 66, 67 years old. Or you're a mother with small children, depending on your welfare benefits.
Wow.
Or you're someone that just and made a huge investment, and you ran into some money, and the government might deem it. Let's watch this.
And wrongly suspect of being criminals. Put into the welfare context, that doesn't just mean that you're looking at a suspicious payment of about £10,000, it means that the government is potentially thinking about stopping or pausing somebody's payments that help them to eat and that help them to get medication. These people are on the poverty line. Many of them are sick. Many of them have mental health problems that make it very difficult to deal with the administration of the system already. And I think that if this goes ahead, we will see huge injustice.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, we're already seeing this, whether it's the trucker convoy in Canada. We've had journalists here on our show that we've featured, excellent journalists, some of the finest independent journalists in the world who have had their Venmo accounts shut down, their PayPal accounts shut down, so they couldn't even travel, they couldn't pay their rent. I mean, this is how they come after you. Soki, how can people join up with this cause? And if you're in the UK specifically, but can you tell us about your website and how people can take action and demand that this doesn't happen?
Yes, absolutely. We're Big Brother Watch. We're bigbrotherwatch.org.uk, and we're on Twitter and Facebook. And then we have a specific campaign site for this, which is stopbankspying.com. And also, it'd be interesting to connect with people around the world that are looking at CBDCs. As I said, we've got this proposal for a CBDC in the UK, which the government wants to launch as early as next year. And our campaign site for that is nospycoin.co.uk.
Love it. Well, thank you guys.
Well, folks, check out all that information that she just gave you. It's well worth looking into. It's not only what the government's planning on doing. Of course, it's going to affect a whole lot of people, but I think in this case, like the lady said, what she was talking about in the UK. But imagine that on scale here on some of the horror stories that we hear about of folks not being able to basically live because the government suspect them of being a criminal, and only thing they did wrong was be on the watch list. You can't feed your kids. You can't get your medicine. You can't do all of these things because of a government thing. Some people are being removed from welfare things and losing their fortune just based on because somebody thinks you're doing something wrong.
And they're going to be faster taking it away and very slow putting it back.
Putting it back, absolutely. They snatch it from you quick, but they 3, 4, 5, 6 months. By that time, you got to move. You're getting kicked out your house.
All right.
But make sure you folks check out the website and all that you mentioned. Again, you can go back into the stream, or I think I can post some of it down in the comment section as well, the description.
And thank you very much for.
Now, in this next part right here, folks. Well, let's let some of it play, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Check this out.
1963, the United States spent $75 million on food stamps. Last year, we spent $75 billion on SNAP, which is just another way of saying food stamps. So you might think Americans are getting way more benefits than ever before, but that's not the case. It's kind of complicated. Public assistance is way more than just food stamps, though, or SNAP cards, as they're called in the hood. We provide to fellow Americans disability payments and TANF, which is temporary assistance for needy families. Basically, free money to poor folks. There's also free or reduced health care, free or reduced school lunch programs, housing vouchers, free public housing, energy assistance programs, and probably a bunch of other stuff that's not listed here. But for the sake
and all those things right there that was just listed, folks, can be just in the blink of an eye. And as you saw, you see the background right there. Do any of those folks look like they could afford to miss a paycheck from what we saw in the background there?
No.
And then you heard the list of things that the government could just stop just like that, based on from what we heard from Redacted and based on this clip right here. It's sure it might affect the rich people, but sure it's not going to affect the average poor person the way it's going to affect someone that's even someone that I'm not listen. I'm not saying I'm broke and I'm not rich either, but I don't live like this. I don't rely on government assistance. If I don't get a paycheck tomorrow, I'm not going to die.
You can skip a few meals.
Right. But these folks here, if they miss one paycheck, it's big trouble.
Yeah.
For brevity in this video, we're just generally going to refer to all of these as welfare moving forward. Now, most good-hearted Americans would say that there should be a temporary welfare assistance program for people who need a bridge to get back on their feet. A sudden illness, a loss of a job, a major setback, those can't be prevented, and they can happen anyway. So some amount of time to assist an American in the short term is a great safety net, which is one reason we're a great country. It's the chronic welfare recipients that cause consternation, the ones that take advantage, that stay unemployed because it's easier, the ones that have more kids just to get the bennies, the folks who don't try to improve their lives because it's much easier to just get free stuff.
What does that sound like to you, Sean?
Manosphere. Child, ain't nobody having a whole child. $100-some a month. Staying up all night.
Those are the ones
all night, please.
Right, for $100.
that make welfare in America so frustrating to me, and that's why we now have welfare reform. Today, we're going to talk about the welfare capitals of America, and also talk about the places in America that aren't on welfare a lot. We're going to learn a lot, some pretty interesting stuff, and some surprises too. So, let's get started on the welfare capitals of America. Okay, so before I begin, I wanted to reiterate that I know many Americans are trying to get off of the welfare system, and that many aren't proud to be on it. Now, let's visit the welfare capitals. We begin in Kentucky, where the average Kentucky resident gets $2,517 per person per year in welfare benefits. Now, some people don't get any money. Most people here, in fact. But some people get $600 or $700 a month in government assistance. And when we're talking about bennies,
He's speaking of $600 or $700 a month. Like, that's a whole lot of damn money.
Right, and they gonna have a child for that all night long. Wang, wang, ear infections and all these different things kids having. Please, anybody trying to do all that?
Indeed. See, and that's the reason why I chose this. See the difference between the redacted channel and this channel? If you went to this channel right here before you listen to the redacted channel or you listen to us, you would think that this is the reason why the government is doing what they're doing. This is why the government is watching this. For $600, they're trying to catch somebody in rural Kentucky for $600.
Immigrants get more than that.
Shit. And they right up under their damn nose.
Right, you're calling it a handout. It's actually taxpayers' money. So if you ever worked, some of that is yours anyway.
Anyway, I'm just giving it to some of my relatives, some of your cousins. They need it. Well, Kentucky is not top 10 right there.
we're referring to two main forms of welfare: food stamps and cash. Food stamps are a debit card that's automatically refilled each month. It's called a SNAP card. And by cash, we mean money electronically deposited into a bank account for living expenses. That's called TANF. Anyways, Kentucky ranking so high isn't a surprise, considering it has the 7th highest poverty rate at 15%. But as we'll soon see, just because residents are poor doesn't mean their state hands out a lot of money. Some of the poorest states hand out the least amount of money. The state of Oregon ranks as the 9th biggest welfare capital in the nation, where the average Oregonian gets about $2,250 each. Again, not everyone, just those who need it. And Oregon ranks 5th at 18% for number of residents who get food stamps. Also worth mentioning is that welfare expenditures in this state total $10 billion every year. Of course, this is a very liberal state, so they're going to hand out a lot of money here. Two other big reasons so many people depend on welfare in Oregon are this state's high cost of living and lack of affordable housing. Portland's high homeless rate is proof of that. And you might be wondering, can homeless people get welfare? Of course. The homeless people you see may be getting food stamps if they follow the rules. In terms of housing assistance, well, they don't have a house, but each state has a different way of using its TANF money to provide short-term housing assistance to homeless people. So there's a good chance there's money set aside to help house them, too. The state of Maine ranks...
No, okay.
I wish he picked a struggle. I wish he picked a darn struggle. First they get a lot, and then they don't. Then they can get this, and some people get it. Then
I
it's
knew
the high cost of housing. Make up
you were
your
chomping
mind.
you were chomping at the bit on that one.
Let me mute my mic. Let
Right,
me
pick
mute
the
my mic.
struggle. Right, and he said, well, if they have a house, okay, and then if they, okay, that money goes for temporary housing. But in Chicago, who in them temporary houses, Shar? Migrants?
Well, shoot, they got most of it now, but yeah.
Okay. I bet those folks in New York are saying, it's them damn migrants. They got the houses now. We still outside. Wasn't no dude outside. He's not a styrofoam container.
Child.
The
Right.
migrants
I
recently.
guess he gonna get somebody pregnant so he can get some more benefits.
Right. As a woman, woman gonna run up to him and say, "Let's have a baby." You on
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Get out of here, sir.
Okay.
As eighth highest in terms of welfare benefits per person. While the state has a very small welfare expenditure, remember there aren't very many people here either. Maine ranks 11th for food stamps at about 12%. That's just a little bit higher than the national average. 40 million Americans rely on food stamps to help purchase groceries every month, or about 1 in 10 of us. Question arises, how many of them are exploiting the system? There's tons of cases where people sell food stamps for money, or
Again, and we're gonna slowly but surely wrap this up. But see, folks, this is the kind of rhetoric that you'll get on some of these YouTube channels. Notice how they conveniently put the liquor sign in when they went to a black neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put it in when they were in Kentucky. They didn't put it in when they were in Portland. But as soon as they hit a black neighborhood, the first thing they want to say is that black folks spend their money, their WIC and all that other stuff, and food stamps and TANF on buying liquor. That's if they don't get caught. So you wonder why folks like the channel Redacted has a channel that's always under constant attack. Because more of these channels like this exist that give you a complete opposite look, that make you think that folks is struggling is really trying to game the system. Yeah, there's some folks gaming the system, but most of the folks that get caught gaming the system, they live in mansions.
Okay. Yeah.
That's who gaming the system.
Right.
How someone that's sitting on laying on the stoop or laying in front of a store, and you kicking them in front of the store every day, how possibly could that person be gaming the system?
Right. If he's selling one stamp for $2 cash, he just trying to make it. That's all
He's
he's
trying
trying to do.
That's it. Trying to make it, sure. Nothing more, nothing less. Trying to make it. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, anyway, in closing, Shar, any closing remarks on what we've done today?
You know that man that made me mad now.
Yeah, I know. See, I could have went on with this, but folks, I'm not even going to mention the channel. I'm not going to put it there. But there are folks out there that look at these type channels and then think, hey, this is the real. This is the real thing here. Let me move this, Shar. I see you put something on the screen right there.
Yeah, I just want to have that on the way on out. So
Right there it is, there, folks. If you want to find that debt ceiling clock, go to usdebtclock.org, and you can see how your hard-earned dollars is going up in smoke, not only by the minute, but by the second. With that, folks, we have out here. Y'all have a good weekend, good week. Watch your 3, your 6, and your 9. Say goodnight, Shar.
good night.